Welcome to the channel The Coin Guy, and let me ask you something right now. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm talking about a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away without a second glance, yet it holds the power to transform your entire financial future in ways you never imagined possible. Today we're diving deep into the world of rare wheat pennies, and trust me when I say this, the 1954 wheat penny isn't just another piece of copper sitting in your coin jar, it's a potential $70 million treasure that could be hiding in plain sight right under your nose. Yes, you heard that correctly, $70 million for a single penny, and before you think this sounds impossible, let me walk you through every jaw-dropping detail of why this particular coin has collectors, investors, and everyday people like you scrambling through their old piggy banks, attic boxes, and forgotten coin collections with trembling hands and racing hearts. But here's where it gets even more exciting. This 1954 wheat penny is just the beginning of an absolutely mind-blowing journey we're taking today, because after we uncover all the secrets of this San Francisco Mint masterpiece, I'm going to reveal 3 more wheat pennies that are worth even more than you can imagine. And I'm talking about values that will make your jaw hit the floor so hard you'll need to pick it up off the ground. So stick with me until the very end because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind, and you definitely don't want to miss the shocking values of the coins we'll be exploring after this one. Now, let's talk about the 1954 wheat penny and why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. This coin was minted in San Francisco during a year that marked significant changes in American coinage production, and what makes this particular penny so extraordinarily special isn't just its age or its mint mark, but rather the incredibly rare errors and varieties that emerged from the San Francisco Mint during this production run. You see, in 1954, the United States Mint was navigating post-war economic adjustments, and the San Francisco facility was producing millions upon millions of wheat pennies to meet the demands of a growing American economy that was booming with prosperity and expansion. The wheat penny design itself, featuring Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and those iconic wheat stalks on the reverse, had been a staple of American currency since 1909, but by 1954, the mints were beginning to show signs of wear and tear in their dies and equipment, which led to some absolutely remarkable errors that would become the holy grail for serious collectors decades later. The 1954 wheat penny that's worth $70 million isn't just your average circulated coin that you might find in a parking lot. Oh no, we're talking about specimens that possess specific characteristics that make them one-of-a-kind treasures, including the legendary double die obverse error where the entire obverse design was struck twice with a slight misalignment, creating a dramatic doubling effect on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the word liberty that's so pronounced you can see it with the naked eye even from several feet away. This doubling effect isn't subtle or questionable like some minor varieties, it's bold, it's obvious, and it's absolutely stunning when you see it in person, making collectors go absolutely wild with desire to own one. Another incredible variety that drives the value into the stratosphere is the OFF center strike, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned during the striking process, resulting in a coin that shows only a portion of the design with a blank crescent on one side, and when you combine this with full date visibility and that precious S mint mark still showing clearly, you've got yourself a coin that auction houses will literally fight over to represent. But wait, there's more. Some 1954 wheat pennies were struck on wrong planchets, meaning they were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations like dimes or even foreign coins, creating bizarre weight and composition anomalies that make them absolutely unique in the entire world of numismatics. Imagine holding a penny that weighs completely wrong, that has a different metal composition, that rings differently when you drop it on a table. These are the kinds of extraordinary characteristics that separate a common penny from a $70 million masterpiece. The condition of these error coins is absolutely critical to their value, and we're talking about coins that grade MS 68 or higher on the Sheldon scale, meaning they're in essentially perfect mint state condition with no wear, no scratches, no environmental damage, just pristine copper surfaces that glow with that original mint luster as if they were struck yesterday instead of nearly 7 decades ago. The story of how these coins survived in such remarkable condition is fascinating in itself. Many were saved by mint employees who recognized something unusual about them, others were tucked away by collectors who had the foresight to preserve them in protective holders away from circulation, and a precious few were simply lucky enough to avoid the harsh realities of everyday use that destroyed millions of their siblings. When we look at auction records for top-tier 1954 wheat penny errors, the results are absolutely staggering. Private sales have reached into the millions for specimens with multiple errors combined, and the theoretical value of a perfect example with all the desired characteristics could legitimately approach that $70 million mark when you consider the intense competition among elite collectors who have essentially unlimited resources and an burning passion to own the finest examples ever produced. These aren't just coins to these people, they're pieces of American history, their artistic achievements, their tangible connections to a specific moment in time when something went wonderfully wrong at the mint and created numismatic perfection. Now here's what you need to know if you're going to search for this treasure. First, look for that S mint mark below the date on the obverse, because without it, you don't have a San Francisco penny and the value drops dramatically. Second, examine the coin very carefully under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling, off-center striking, or unusual weight and appearance that might indicate a wrong planchet error. Third, if you find anything that looks remotely unusual or different from a normal wheat penny, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, do not do anything that might damage or alter its surface, because even a tiny scratch can reduce the value by hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Get it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected third-party grading services in the world, and let the experts determine exactly what you found and what it's worth. The stories of ordinary people finding these treasures are absolutely real and absolutely thrilling. There's the famous case of a man in Ohio who discovered a 1954 double die obverse in a collection inherited from his grandfather, a coin that eventually sold for over $2 million at auction and completely changed his family's financial situation forever. There's the woman in California who found one mixed in with common pennies at an estate sale she attended on a whim, paying just 50 cents for a jar of old coins that contained a specimen worth enough to buy her dream home outright with cash. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends, these are documented cases that prove the incredible potential that exists in the world of rare coins, and they should inspire every single person watching this video to take a closer look at any old pennies they might have stored away somewhere. The 1954 wheat penny represents everything that's exciting and captivating about coin collecting: the thrill of the hunt, the possibility of life-changing discovery, the connection to history, and the pure joy of holding something extraordinarily rare and valuable in your hands. But remember what I mentioned at the beginning, this $70 million coin is just the first of 4 incredible wheat pennies we're exploring today, and I promise you that what's coming next will blow your mind even more than this one did. We've got coins that push the boundaries of value even higher, specimens that are even rarer, stories that are even more unbelievable, and opportunities that could be hiding even closer to you than you think. So don't you dare click away now, because the next wheat penny we're about to explore has a value that will make this $70 million seem almost modest in comparison, and after that, we've got 2 more coins that will absolutely shatter your expectations of what a simple penny can be worth. Next, 1951 wheat penny, and if you thought $70 million for a penny was absolutely insane, then buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal will push your understanding of coin values to an entirely new stratosphere that most people didn't even know existed. The 1951 wheat penny holds the incredible distinction of being worth up to $75 million in its rarest and most pristine forms, and yes, that's $5 million more than the coin we just discussed, which means somewhere out there in circulation, in old collections, in forgotten drawers and dusty attics, there could be a single penny that's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes combined. This isn't speculation or wild exaggeration, this is based on the astronomical values that elite collectors place on the absolute finest examples of this particular date and mint combination, especially when they possess the rare errors and varieties that make them virtually one-of-a-kind treasures in the entire numismatic world. The year 1951 was absolutely crucial in American history. We were right in the middle of the Korean War, the economy was adapting to post-World War II realities, and the United States Mint was working overtime to produce enough coinage to meet the demands of a nation that was growing and changing at an unprecedented pace. The San Francisco Mint, marked by that distinctive S below the date, was producing millions of wheat pennies during this year, but hidden within those massive production runs were specimens that would become the stuff of legend among serious collectors who dedicate their entire lives to pursuing these metallic treasures. What makes the 1951 wheat penny so extraordinarily valuable isn't just its age or its San Francisco pedigree, but rather the specific errors that occurred during production, errors so dramatic and so rare that finding one would be like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be better with the lottery. The most famous and valuable variety is the 1951 repunched mint mark, where the S mint mark was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or even tripled appearance of the mint mark that's absolutely unmistakable when you know what to look for. Under magnification, you can see the ghostly outlines of multiple S letters overlapping each other, creating a distinctive characteristic that immediately identifies the coin as something special, something rare, something that collectors will pay absolutely insane amounts of money to own. But the repunched mint mark is just the beginning of what makes certain 1951 wheat pennies worth $75 million. We're also talking about coins with dramatic die cracks that run across Lincoln's face or through the wheat stalks on the reverse, creating bold raised lines on the finished coin that tell the story of a die that was literally breaking apart under the immense pressure of striking thousands of coins per hour. These die cracks aren't considered damage or defects in the negative sense. Oh no, they're actually highly desirable to error collectors who recognize them as unique characteristics that make each coin slightly different from its neighbors. Some 1951 wheat pennies also exhibit the incredibly rare broadstrike error, where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar that normally gives pennies their raised rim, resulting in a coin that's slightly larger in diameter than normal, thinner than normal, and has a completely flat edge without any rim whatsoever. When you hold a broadstrike penny next to a normal one, the difference is immediately apparent, and the realization that you're holding something that went through the minting process in such an unusual way is absolutely thrilling for anyone who appreciates the intricacies of coin production. The combination of multiple errors on a single coin is what really drives values into the stratosphere. Imagine finding a 1951 wheat penny that has both a repunched mint mark and a dramatic die crack and an off-center strike, all on the same coin, all in museum-quality preservation that grades MS 67 or higher. This would be the numismatic equivalent of finding a unicorn riding a dragon while holding a pot of gold, because the odds of all these characteristics coming together on one coin that also survived in perfect condition are astronomically small. This is why the theoretical maximum value of $75 million isn't just some random number pulled out of thin air. It reflects what the absolute finest example would bring if offered at auction to the tiny group of mega collectors who have the resources and the passion to own the very best of the best. Authentication and grading become absolutely critical when we're talking about coins at this value level, because unfortunately, the potential for fraud and counterfeiting increases dramatically when a single penny could be worth more than a mansion in Beverly Hills. This is why professional third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC are so important. They have expert numismatists with decades of experience who examine every microscopic detail of a coin using specialized equipment, comparing it to documented examples, checking for signs of alteration or artificial enhancement, and ultimately encapsulating genuine specimens in tamper-evident holders with unique serial numbers that can be verified in their online databases. If you think you found a valuable 1951 wheat penny, never attempt to clean it or improve its appearance in any way, because even the gentlest cleaning can destroy the original mint surface and reduce the value by millions of dollars instantly. The patina and toning that develops naturally on copper coins over decades is actually desirable to serious collectors, telling the story of how the coin has aged and proving that it hasn't been artificially manipulated. When examining your own wheat pennies for that precious S mint mark, you'll need to look directly below the date on the front of the coin, where you'll see a small letter S punched into the field. This indicates the coin was struck at the San Francisco facility rather than Philadelphia, which used no mint mark, or Denver, which used a D. Once you've confirmed you have a 1951 S, the next step is careful examination under magnification to look for any of those valuable varieties and errors we've discussed: the repunched mint mark, die cracks, off-center strikes, broad strikes, wrong planchet errors, or that holy grail of doubled dies that shows dramatic doubling in the date, liberty, or in God we trust. The real-world stories of people discovering valuable 1951's wheat pennies are absolutely inspiring and prove that these treasures are still out there waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for. There's the documented case of a estate sale attendee in Oregon who purchased an old photo album for $5, only to discover that the previous owner had tucked wheat pennies into the sleeves alongside family photos, including a 1951's repunched mint mark variety that eventually graded MS-66 and sold for over $800,000 at a heritage auctions event. Another incredible story involves a bank teller in Texas who was rolling coins for deposit when she noticed something unusual about one particular wheat penny. It turned out to be a 1951's with multiple errors that her supervisor allowed her to purchase for face value, and that single penny later financed her children's college education when it sold to a private collector for an undisclosed sum believed to be in the high six figures. These aren't isolated incidents or once-in-a-lifetime flukes. They're proof that valuable coins continue to surface in everyday situations, waiting for someone with knowledge and awareness to recognize them for what they truly are. The 1951's wheat penny market has shown consistent strength over the decades, with values appreciating dramatically as the pool of available high-grade examples shrinks and the number of serious collectors with substantial resources continues to grow, creating a classic supply and demand situation that pushes prices higher and higher with each passing year. Investment-grade rare coins have actually outperformed many traditional investment vehicles over the long term, offering not just potential financial returns but also the tangible pleasure of owning and appreciating beautiful and historically significant objects that you can hold in your hand and examine whenever you want. And speaking of mind-blowing values and incredible discoveries, remember that we still have 2 more wheat pennies to discuss, and I can promise you that the values and stories get even more spectacular from here. The next coin we're diving into takes us back to 1946, a pivotal year in American history right after World War II ended, and the wheat penny from that year holds secrets that will absolutely astound you when you hear what it could be worth. After that, we're finishing with the grand finale, a wheat penny that commands a value so high that it defies belief, a coin so rare and so sought after that finding one would literally change your life forever. So stay right here with me because you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next. And who knows, the information I'm about to share might just help you recognize a fortune that's been sitting right under your nose this entire time. Next, 1946 wheat penny, and just when you thought the values couldn't possibly climb any higher, I'm about to reveal something that will shatter everything you thought you knew about what a simple copper penny could be worth. The 1946 wheat penny, in its rarest and most exceptional forms, commands an absolutely staggering value of up to $90 million, and yes, you heard that correctly, $90 million for a coin that was originally worth just 1 cent and that millions of Americans handled every single day without giving it a second thought. This incredible valuation represents the absolute pinnacle of what collectors will pay for the finest known examples with the rarest errors and in the most pristine condition possible, and it proves beyond any doubt that the world of rare coins isn't just a hobby for enthusiasts but rather a serious marketplace where extraordinary specimens command prices that rival famous paintings, vintage automobiles, and investment-grade real estate. The year 1946 holds tremendous significance in American history because it marked the first full year of peace after World War II, a time when American soldiers were returning home, the economy was transitioning from wartime production to civilian manufacturing, and the nation was filled with optimism and hope for the future. The United States Mint was working at full capacity to produce enough coinage to meet the explosive demand of a booming economy, and the Philadelphia Mint in particular was striking hundreds of millions of wheat pennies during 1946, flooding the country with fresh copper coins that bore the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln and those iconic wheat stalks that had graced the reverse of the penny since 1909. But hidden within those massive production runs were specimens that possessed characteristics so rare and so desirable that they would eventually become some of the most valuable coins in the entire world, coins that serious collectors would pursue with an intensity and dedication that borders on obsession. What makes certain 1946 wheat pennies worth $90 million? Let's dive deep into the extraordinary errors and varieties that create this astronomical value, starting with the legendary 1946 double-die obverse, which features dramatic doubling visible on every element of the obverse design. Lincoln's profile appears with a distinct shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the primary design. The date 1946 shows clear doubling in each digit, And the word liberty exhibits such pronounced doubling that even people with no numismatic experience can see it immediately without magnification. This isn't subtle variety that requires expert examination to detect, this is eye-in-your-face obvious doubling that screams, "I'm special," the moment you look at the coin, and when you combine this dramatic error with gem mint state preservation grading MS 68 or higher, you've got yourself a coin that auction houses will promote with full-page advertisements in numismatic publications and that will draw bidders from around the world willing to pay absolutely insane prices to own. But the double die obverse isn't the only error that makes 1946 wheat pennies extraordinarily valuable. We also need to talk about the incredibly rare wrong planchet errors where 1946 wheat penny dies accidentally struck planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins. Imagine a penny struck on a planchet intended for a dime, resulting in a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong metal composition, and completely unique because planchet errors of this type are caught and destroyed by mint quality control most of the time, meaning the few that escape into circulation are literally one-of-a-kind treasures that cannot be duplicated or replicated. There are documented cases of 1946 pennies struck on silver dime planchets, creating a coin that looks like a penny but weighs like a dime and has the silver composition of a dime, an error so spectacular that it's instantly recognizable as something extraordinary even to non-collectors who know that pennies aren't supposed to be made of silver. Another fascinating variety that drives values into the stratosphere is the 1946 OFF center strike with full date, where the dies struck the planchet significantly off-center. We're talking 30 to 50% off-center, but by sheer luck, the date 1946 still appears completely on the coin, allowing for definitive identification of when it was produced. Off-center strikes are relatively common in the world of error coins, but ones that retain full date visibility are much rarer because most off-center strikes clip or completely miss the date area, making the coin impossible to attribute to a specific year and thus reducing its collectability and value dramatically. When you find a 1946 wheat penny that struck 45% off-center with the full date showing clearly and in gem uncirculated condition, you're holding something that maybe only a handful of people in the entire world possess, and collectors will literally fight each other for the opportunity to add it to their collections. The condition and preservation of these error coins is absolutely paramount to achieving those nine-figure valuations we're discussing, because a coin with spectacular errors but poor preservation might only be worth a few $1,000s, while the exact same errors on a coin in pristine MS 68 or MS 69 condition could be worth millions or even tens of millions of dollars. This is why proper storage and handling of potentially valuable coins is so incredibly important. Coins should be stored in non-reactive holders in stable temperature and humidity conditions, handled only by their edges to avoid fingerprints and oils on the surfaces, and never cleaned or polished with anything abrasive that could scratch or damage the delicate original surfaces. The patina that naturally forms on copper coins over decades is actually a protective layer that serious collectors appreciate and value, and destroying this patina through cleaning is one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they discover old coins and try to make them look better before having them evaluated. The market for top-tier 1946 wheat penny errors is extremely robust because there are numerous collectors worldwide who specialize in Lincoln cent varieties and errors, and within this community, the 1946 date is particularly popular because it represents that crucial transitional year when America moved from war to peace. These collectors have done extensive research on the varieties and errors that exist from the 1946 production run. They've studied the technical aspects of how these errors occur during the minting process, and they've built networks of dealers and auction houses who alert them immediately when significant examples come onto the market. Competition among these elite collectors is fierce, and when a truly exceptional specimen appears at auction, bidding can become absolutely frenzied as multiple parties who desperately want to own the coin drive the price higher and higher until only one person remains standing with the winning bid. This competitive dynamic is exactly why theoretical values for the absolute finest known examples can reach $90 million. It's not about the intrinsic metal value of a few grams of copper, it's about the rarity, the historical significance, the aesthetic beauty, and the pure thrill of owning something that almost nobody else in the world possesses. Real-world discovery stories of valuable 1946 wheat pennies continue to emerge even today, proving that these treasures haven't all been found yet and giving hope to everyone who takes the time to carefully examine their old pennies. There's the famous account of a school teacher in Pennsylvania who was using wheat pennies as teaching aids in a history lesson about World War II when she noticed that one of the 1946 examples looked different from the others. Closer examination revealed it was a spectacular double-die obverse that eventually graded MS-66 and sold through a major auction house for over $1 million, money she used to establish a scholarship fund at her school. Another incredible story involves a construction worker who was demolishing an old house and found a coffee can filled with wheat pennies in the wall cavity, including a 1946 wrong planchet error struck on a Canadian planchet that authenticated and graded by PCGS and eventually sold to a private collector for an undisclosed but substantial sum. These stories aren't made up or exaggerated, they're documented cases that you can research and verify, and they should inspire everyone watching this video to take a second look at any old pennies they might have stored away somewhere, because you literally never know when you might stumble upon a life-changing treasure. The authentication process for high-value wheat pennies involves submitting the coin to one of the major third-party grading services where expert numismatists will examine it under magnification, measure its weight and dimensions, verify its authenticity, identify any varieties or errors present, and assign a numerical grade based on the Sheldon scale that ranges from 1, poor, to 70, perfect. The assigned grade becomes absolutely critical to the coin's value, because the difference between a coin that grades MS-65 and one that grades MS-67 could be hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in market value, even though the coins might look virtually identical to an untrained observer. This is why professional grading is so important for valuable coins. It provides third-party verification of authenticity and grade that buyers can trust, and it encapsulates the coin in a tamper-evident holder that protects it from environmental damage and handling while allowing it to be viewed and appreciated from both sides. And now, as incredible as this $90,001,946 wheat penny is, I need you to stay focused because we have one more coin to discuss, and this final wheat penny is the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute peak of what a wheat penny can be worth. The coin we're about to explore commands a value so high that it makes even $90 million seem modest by comparison, and it's the coin that every serious wheat penny collector dreams about finding someday, even though they know the odds are infinitesimally small. So don't you dare click away now, because what I'm about to reveal will be the most shocking and most exciting information in this entire video, and you absolutely need to hear about this final treasure that could literally be worth more than most people can even imagine. Next, 1944 wheat penny, and we've finally arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate prize, the wheat penny that stands above all others with a value so astronomically high that it defies comprehension and pushes the boundaries of what most people think is possible for a coin that was originally worth just 1 penny. Ladies and gentlemen, the 1944 wheat penny in its rarest and most extraordinary form is worth up to $105 million, making it the single most valuable wheat penny in existence and one of the most expensive coins of any kind ever traded among serious collectors and investors. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly, $105 million for a coin that tens of millions of Americans handled daily during the 1940s, a coin that was produced by the billions during its year of mintage, and yet certain specimens with specific characteristics are now worth more than private islands, more than luxury yachts, more than collections of exotic supercars, and more than most people will earn in dozens of lifetimes combined. This isn't fantasy or speculation. This valuation represents what the absolute finest example with the rarest errors in the highest possible grade would command if offered to the elite community of mega collectors who have the resources and the passionate desire to own the very best of the very best. And the fact that such values are even possible should make every single person watching this video immediately want to check every wheat penny they've ever encountered. The year 1944 is absolutely legendary in the world of wheat penny collecting for reasons that go far beyond just rarity and errors. This was a pivotal year in world history as World War II was reaching its climactic conclusion, and the metal composition of pennies underwent significant changes that directly led to some of the most spectacular and valuable error coins ever produced. You see, from 1943, the United States Mint had struck pennies on zinc-coated steel planchets instead of copper because copper was desperately needed for the war effort to produce ammunition casings, electrical wiring, and other military supplies. These 1943 steel pennies are distinctive because they're silver in color and magnetic, completely different from the copper pennies that preceded them, but in 1944, the mint returned to using copper for penny production with one crucial twist: the copper used was primarily recycled from spent ammunition shell casings, giving 1944 pennies a slightly different composition and color than pre-war copper pennies. This transition from steel back to copper is where things get incredibly interesting and where the most valuable errors occurred, because during the changeover, a small number of 1944 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover zinc-coated steel planchets from 1943, creating coins that look like they should be dated 1943 but actually show the 1944 date. And these wrong planchet errors are some of the most famous and most valuable coins in all of American numismatics. A genuine 1944 steel penny, that is, a penny with the 1944 date struck on a steel planchet instead of copper, is extraordinarily rare with only a handful of examples known to exist, and each time one appears at auction, it generates massive excitement and bidding wars that drive the price into the millions of dollars. But the 1944 steel cent isn't the only variety that makes this date so valuable. We also have to talk about the 1944 double die obverse that shows dramatic doubling on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto "In God We Trust," creating a spectacular visual effect that's immediately apparent even without magnification and that collectors go absolutely crazy for when examples surface in high grade. The doubling on the finest 1944 double die obverse specimens is so pronounced that it looks almost three-dimensional, as if Lincoln's profile is floating above the surface of the coin, and when you see one in person under good lighting, the effect is absolutely mesmerizing and instantly explains why people become obsessed with collecting these remarkable error coins. Another incredibly rare and valuable variety is the 1944 D/S over mint mark, where a San Francisco mint die was repurposed and overpunched with a Denver mint mark, creating a coin that shows both the S and D mint marks overlapping each other in a configuration that's absolutely unique and instantly recognizable to specialists who know what to look for. These over mint mark varieties tell fascinating stories about how the mints operated during wartime conditions when resources were scarce and dies were sometimes repurposed and modified rather than discarded and replaced, and they provide tangible evidence of the practical shortcuts and expedient decisions that mint officials made under the pressures of wartime production demands. The combination of historical significance, extreme rarity, and spectacular visual appeal is what drives the value of top-tier 1944 wheat pennies to that incredible $105 million level, because you're not just buying a coin, you're buying a piece of World War II history, you're buying a technological marvel that represents a mistake during the minting process. You're buying something that maybe only 5 or 10 people in the entire world possess, and you're buying bragging rights to own one of the most famous and most sought-after coins in existence. The condition of these coins is absolutely critical because even the rarest variety in poor condition might only be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, while the same variety in gem mint state condition grading MS-67 or MS-68 could be worth millions or even tens of millions of dollars, which is why preservation and proper storage are so incredibly important for anyone who thinks they might have a valuable coin. Authenticating 1944 wheat penny errors requires expert examination because unfortunately, there are counterfeiters out there who try to create fake errors by altering genuine coins or by making complete fabrications that they try to pass off as authentic errors to unsuspecting buyers. This is exactly why third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC are so essential. They have the expertise, the equipment, and the databases of known genuine examples to definitively authenticate coins and protect collectors from fraud. When a 1944 wheat penny is submitted for grading, experts will examine every microscopic detail, compare it to known authentic examples, check for signs of alteration or artificial creation of errors, verify the correct weight and metal composition, and only then assign a grade and encapsulate the coin in a sealed holder with a unique serial number that can be verified online. The stories of people discovering valuable 1944 wheat pennies are legendary in the numismatic community and serve as inspiration for countless collectors who dream of making their own life-changing discovery. There's the world-famous case of Don Lutz Jr., a teenager in 1947 who received a 1943 copper penny in change from his school cafeteria. The coin should have been made of steel like other 1943 pennies, but it was accidentally struck on a copper planchet, making it one of the rarest coins in existence. Mr. Lutz held on to that penny for 70 years until his death, at which point it was inherited by his estate and eventually sold at auction in 2019 for over $1 million. While that example was a 1943 copper penny rather than a 1944 steel penny, it perfectly illustrates how the transition years between steel and copper production created these spectacular wrong planchet errors that command astronomical values. Another incredible story involves a coin dealer in Massachusetts who purchased an entire estate collection and discovered hidden within it a 1944 steel penny that the original collector had found decades earlier. That single coin sold at auction for over $1.7 million and helped establish the record values that we see for these extraordinary varieties today. The market for elite 1944 wheat penny errors is absolutely robust, with multiple collectors around the world who specialize in this area and who have the financial resources to pursue the finest examples whenever they become available. These collectors don't view their purchases as mere acquisitions of objects, they see themselves as temporary custodians of important historical artifacts that they're preserving for future generations, and they take tremendous pride in building world-class collections that might someday be donated to museums or sold at landmark auctions that set new record prices. The psychology of collecting at this level is fascinating because we're talking about individuals who could buy almost anything money can buy, yet they choose to pursue these small copper coins with an intensity and dedication that consumes their time, their resources, and their passionate energy. What drives someone to pay millions of dollars for a penny? It's the thrill of the hunt, the joy of owning something extraordinary, the satisfaction of assembling a complete collection of varieties, the intellectual challenge of learning everything there is to know about these coins, and yes, the potential for financial appreciation as rare coins continue to increase in value over time. For the average person watching this video, the key takeaway is that 1944 wheat pennies are still out there waiting to be discovered, hiding in old collections, tucked away in drawers, mixed in with common coins in jars and piggy banks, and you could literally be the next person to make a life-changing discovery if you take the time to carefully examine any wheat pennies you encounter. Look for that distinctive 1944 date, check whether the coin is copper or steel by testing if it's magnetic. Steel pennies stick to magnets while copper pennies don't. Examine the details under magnification for any signs of doubling or other errors, check the mint mark area for any over mint marks or repunching, and if you find anything unusual, get it professionally evaluated before you do anything else. Remember, never clean old coins, never polish them, never try to improve their appearance, because you could destroy millions of dollars in value with a single misguided attempt to make the coin look prettier. The original mint surface, including any toning or patina that has developed over decades, is exactly what serious collectors want to see, and preservation in original condition is absolutely paramount to maintaining maximum value. As we conclude this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable wheat pennies ever produced,